All right. Well, greetings once again and welcome this morning. Glad to have you with us, whether you're in this very room or watching us online or watching the recording later. We're glad you're here. My topic for this morning is Imagine Peace. And if you've been with us for the last few weeks or have been watching online, you know that, or looking at posts on Facebook, Centers for Spiritual Living, CSL's theme for the month of September has been Pieces into Peace. And our theme for 2024 is a grand rising. So coming from that place, my words, not theirs, but coming from that place of conflict and insecurity into that place of security and of peace. And so this morning we're talking about Imagine Peace. It's a busy weekend. There's a lot going on, starting yesterday with the International Day of Peace. This is observed around the world each year. Established in 1981 by unanimous United Nations resolution, Peace Day provides a globally shared date for all humanity to commit to peace above all differences and to contribute to building a culture of peace. So that was happening yesterday. Today, as you may know, is the first day of autumn or fall. The palm trees may or may not change color so much, but ideally there are a few trees around where we're going that will start to change color in a few weeks, which to me is just so amazing. And today is also, and I'll talk more about this later, today there are 100 days left in 2024. Amazing, huh? And go to Costco, go to Home Goods, go to almost anywhere. And it's so funny. I was talking with my friend earlier this morning from Knoxville, and he was saying, and I was at Home Goods yesterday, so here's the Halloween stuff, here's the Thanksgiving stuff, and here's the Christmas stuff. Valentine's Day, probably in a couple of weeks, but that's a separate story. So at the end of the service, we and many, many congregations around the country and around the world will sing the song, "Let There Be Peace on Earth, and Let It Begin with Me." But my question for us is, what are we doing to allow peace to begin with us? I'm often reminded when I think about this of John Mayer's song from 2006, believe it or not, "Waiting for the World to Change." And I will not sing it because I love you all too much to do that, and I don't want to clear the room. Me and my friends were all misunderstood. They say we stand for nothing, and there's no way we ever could. Now we see everything that's going wrong with the world and those who lead it. We just feel like we don't have the means to rise above and beat it. So we keep waiting on the world to change. So my question for me, and you if you choose to join me, is, am I waiting on the world to change? We'll be at peace as soon as those people, and you get to fill in the blank. Or are we recognizing that peace is an inside job, and every moment of every day, I have the opportunity to be at peace and offer peace to others? If you've heard me speak before, you might remember me talking about something's happened. And I know how I'm going to react and respond because my first thought is, oh, for the love of God. You might have those. Those people, we will be at peace as soon as those people stop doing that. As soon as those people start doing that. But I would suggest that we don't need to wait for them to do anything, because this afternoon, this moment, there's the opportunity for us to be at peace. And as I think Ernest Holmes said, a thought anywhere is thought everywhere. So these are always the opportunity for us to begin to practice that peace and share that physically or at least emotionally with the world. So we want peace. We want to be calm. We want no drama. We want all the rest of that. But as spiritual beings having a human experience, chances are at some point, unless you live in a cave, something happened. Might be, I'm late, I'm just trying to get to work by 11, and there's somebody in the left-hand lane doing 55 miles an hour talking on the phone. Or because if you've heard me speak before, you might remember that I love to pick on Costco. I'm at Costco. I just got to go to the pharmacy to pick up a prescription, and there's somebody parked sideways. And now, I don't know if you've been to Costco lately, but they're not just looking at cards. You have to flash your card at the little meter. So for the love of God, didn't you know you were going to need your membership card? So much for that peace stuff, right? And this is a process, not an event. So ideally, as we notice we're not at peace, we can pull ourselves back in and maybe make a change to whatever we're thinking and whatever we're showing. Keeping in mind the old Buddhist statement, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. So we are enlightened, we are in this teaching, everything is wonderful, and yet part of the lusciousness of this life is, I believe, is the opportunity to say, ooh, why is this bothering me so much? And we'll talk more about that. So the opposite of peace, I believe, is conflict. And very often our conflict comes from our rules. I don't know about you, but I have a list. I think it's gotten shorter over time, but that's a separate talk. Remember in the book, The Four Agreements, Don Miguel Ruiz talks about our domestication and how when we were first born, didn't know anything, didn't expect anything, always in the moment, I'm hungry, I'm wet, I'm tired, whatever, and I just need my immediate needs taken care of. But then over time, our parents, our grandparents, our other family members, our ministers, perhaps other people in our lives taught us how things should be and how things shouldn't be. And because we didn't take the time to say, now wait just a minute, we adopted those rules as our own, and we might have carried those with us for years or decades, and we will continue to unless and until we stop and say, that doesn't really make sense for me anymore. But the opportunity is always to review that list. Maybe it's an event. Maybe it's they didn't do what they should have or did do what they shouldn't have. Or just the mere fact of them being still chopping wood and carrying water. Ever had one of those people, you just can't quite understand it, but you just, you know what I mean. What's going on here? We'll talk more about that. One of my favorite writings is A Course in Miracles. And one of my favorite verses from A Course in Miracles says, excuse me, everyone and everything I see will lean toward me to bless me. I know, right? So that person doing 55 in the left lane when you're trying to get to work, that person at Costco, that person, that family member who just makes you crazy, are all leaning toward us to bless us. Interesting. If that's true, what is the blessing? How do I find it? And how do I merge that into my life and my beliefs? Sometimes it has to do with what we believe. in my, no, I'm not going to say advanced years. I'm going to say, I'm so not going to say that. I need some mouthwash, please, anybody? Recently, that's so much better, I have started being more aware of why this, whatever this is, bothers me. And is there a way to change this story? Because that's all that it ever is the story that we're telling ourselves. Is there a way for me to change this into something that feels better? So I am more and more conscious of this. Why does this bother me? Why is this becoming a conflict? And where is the blessing? I was in the Philadelphia area 2 weekends ago, I think, and had a wonderful, first of all, it's absolutely beautiful, especially September, October, the leaves are changing. Get on the plane and come home before the first snowfall. If you've ever spent any time in that, the mid-Atlantic or the Northeast, it gets a little brisk back there in the winter, but absolutely love it in the fall. And I was reminded of an experience that I had when my husband and I lived in Boston in the mid-90s. Now, I have a rule about being on time. If you didn't come in, if you weren't in this room before 10 o'clock, I am not talking to you. There is no reflection on anything in your life or anything you've done, but I have a thing about being on time and a few minutes early and even 20 minutes early. So we moved. It was a job transfer to Boston and a promotion. First business trip, flew from Boston to Philadelphia on a snowy day in February of 1994. Landed, got my rental car, headed down Interstate 95, headed out the Blue Route, headed out toward my client. Now, in that area, they have turnpikes. Very unforgiving turnpikes. Because in Southern California, and California in general, in the West, I would say, if you miss the exit, you just go down to the next one, which is a mile or a mile and a half away, and make a U-turn and come back. No. So out it's the 476, they call it the Blue Route. So out, and I missed the exit to go to my appointment and wound up on the Pennsylvania Turnpike headed west. Had to go 10 miles to get off, pay the toll, and come back to my exit. Now, this was 1994, so the beginnings of cell phones, which I did not have, the beginnings of MapQuest, which I still had and printed and had with me. But to make a long story even longer, I am 20 minutes late to my very first client appointment. I stress. I needed a pill or I needed to be hospitalized or something. I just was hysterical. So finally got to the appointment, almost crawling in on my knees. I am so sorry. I am 20 minutes late. I am so sorry. They're going to cancel the contract. We're going to have to drive back home, pay for it ourselves, back to San Diego. We're going to starve to death because I won't have an income because I got fired. We set up the drama. We set up all the oh my gods based on the image of what could happen. Yes. Called him. He came out to the lobby. I said, oh my God, I'm so sorry, and spent 5 minutes, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, it's snowing. Don't worry about it. My rule. Not his. But how often do we project our rules onto somebody else? I have an amazing new I will tell you that I absolutely know that the universe has a sense of humor. And the reason that I know that is because some people in my life do not have such a rule. My husband did not have such a rule. And so we needed to be there at 10 o'clock. We were there at 10 o'clock. 9:55, 10:05. And it was okay. New relationship, absolutely wonderful, has no such rule. So 10:30, 10:45. Not running for a plane or anything, just you said you were going to be here at 10 o'clock. I'd be in the parking lot at 15 till waiting, listening to the radio so that I'd be there on time. What does this mean? You said you were going to be here at 10 o'clock. It's 10:30. What does this mean? They don't love me. They don't care. I'm never going to find anybody to love me. And on and on and on, and I'm not worthy, and so on and so on and so on. What does this mean? It means he got there at 10:30. That was it. But how often do we create this conflict within ourselves because of the assumptions and the rule that somebody else doesn't have? So I'm convinced that the universe has a sense of humor because, as many of you know, I work with 18 to 24-year-olds in a housing program for the homeless. These kids have no such rule about being on time. And the still small voice keeps saying, Jerry, get over yourself. They'll get there 10-ish, and that's okay, because I could see peace. That's my other quote for Course in Miracles. Oh, and it's time for that. One moment. I could see peace instead of this. Whatever this is, I could see peace instead of this. Often we create that conflict within ourselves based on what we can see. And it might have to do with them being late. It might have to do with them not recognizing a birthday or an anniversary or some important event for us. They don't love me. They don't care about me again. I'm never going to find anybody to love me. I'm not worthy, and all of those other things. And the truth that we didn't know is something completely different. What I know is, in this experience of spiritual living that we call it, there's always the opportunity for us to just be consciously aware and stop before we get to the end of the road and giving up our entire lives and that everybody hates us, nobody loves us, and so on and so on. We might start down that road and say, now, wait a minute, that's not the truth. And just bring ourselves back, because I could see peace instead of this. So we talked earlier about that everyone and everything leans toward us to bless us, and so the blessing could very well be that there's another way to look at this, that the rule was somebody else's, that the teachings of Abraham talk about that we're always looking for a thought that feels better. So is there not in denial, but since I don't have all the facts, is there another way to look at this? Sometimes our conflict and what keeps us out of peace has to do with our human emotions and our belief that how we shouldn't feel what we feel, or we should feel what we're not feeling. In this teaching we call New Thought or Religious Science, we tend to focus on the positive, that everything is in divine order, that everything is as it should be, that it's all good, don't worry, be happy, all of those statements that I'm sure you've heard before. And all of those are absolutely true, but the fact may be that we're going through a heartbreaking experience and we're terrified or angry or hurt or heartbroken. how important it is for us to allow ourselves to feel whatever that is, and not cover it up with those statements that are true, but are sometimes called, and you've heard me talk about this before, toxic positivity and spiritual bypass. Because we know the truth. We know that all is well. We know that everything's in divine order. But we also know that life is amazing and wonderful and luscious, and also painful and heartbreaking. And it's part of it. It's just all part of it, and how important it is to allow ourselves to feel that, because if we don't, there's that internal conflict of, no, I shouldn't be feeling this way. And that's not the truth. The truth is we get to feel that. We get to love ourselves through that process and know that it's what we're here for, is to just keep moving through and allowing ourselves, loving ourselves enough to feel whatever it is we feel so we can move forward. Because we're not living wholeheartedly. I love the concept of this. We're not living wholeheartedly if we're not honest with ourselves. Found a great quote from The Gifts of Imperfection by Brené Brown. She writes, "Wholehearted living is about engaging in our lives from a place of worthiness. It means cultivating the courage, compassion, and connection to wake up in the morning and think, no matter what gets done and how much is left undone, I am enough. It's going to bed at night thinking, yes, I am imperfect and vulnerable and sometimes afraid, but that doesn't change the truth that I am also brave and worthy of love and belonging." I did the dinner dishes last night. Don't tell anybody, but sometimes I don't. Sometimes it's 8 o'clock not 8, but 9 o'clock, and we'll save it till the morning. And the dog doesn't care. She's very kind and does not complain about it. And so I get up the next morning and do dirty dishes, and that's all right. But it's okay, because that's where I am in that moment. I'm not doing that tonight, and that's okay. Tomorrow morning, I'll do that, and that's okay. But honor ourselves to live wholeheartedly and to know that we can be where we are, what we're feeling, our energy level and everything else, and whatever's going on, that's okay. My feelings, and this came to me this morning as I was fluffing. This is a purely spiritual term. So I write the talk, I'm working with it throughout the week, and then Sunday morning I sit and I fluff. So I underline things, I add thoughts. So that's just a purely spiritual term, fluffing. But this, I love this quote from Brené Brown, because in the Gifts of Imperfection, and I've got some stuff with imperfection, but it's her book, not mine. But we are worthy of saying, this is what I want. We are worthy of saying, no, thank you, but I'm not doing that. We are worthy of that. It's important for us to do that, because I don't know about you, but if I say yes to something that I really wanted to say no to, I am out of peace. If I'm doing something out of obligation, I am out of peace. And how can I expect the world to change when I'm walking around in that resentment and that regret? I can see peace instead of this. It allows me to say, yes, I want to do that. And if you don't want to do that, that's okay, because I really want to. And I don't need to explain it. I don't need to rationalize it. I just really want to do that. I really don't want to do that. The sacred, yes. And the sacred, no. And it's okay. Because again, if we're doing something out of obligation, it's probably not going to bring us peace. And the sacred, I don't know. That's a topic for another Sunday, but I just wanted to throw that out. Why am I conflicted? Because, see, and for me, the problem is if you ask me to do something and I don't want to do it, but I say yes, then I regret saying yes, and I resent you for asking me because you know I was going to say yes. It's a lose-lose situation. So in our integrity, we know what works for us and what doesn't, it's okay to speak our truth. And important to speak our truth. So 100 days left in the year, believe it or not. What are we carrying with us that we're ready to forgive? And this is another whole Sunday morning talk, but I love this quote. This is from the book Forgiveness and Other Acts of Love by Stephanie Dowrick, one of my very most favorite books. And she writes about forgiveness. You may not recognize forgiveness even when you have experienced it, for what we are seeking to know better is subtle, difficult to define, multi-layered, and contains an element of magic. You will, however, feel it in your body. Something, very nearly a thing, has left you. You're no longer carrying the load you were. You have put it down. Anger may have given way to sorrow or regret. Rage may have flattened out into indifference or pity. But into what seemed black and white has crept a little gray. I love that. You ever had that experience? It was wrong. It was bad. They shouldn't have done that. And sometimes it's not and I do a workshop about the process of forgiveness because I used to think that it's just a magic wand kind of a thing. Oh, okay, I forgive you. Well, good luck with, right? Good luck with that. You know, I can say it and that's fine, but I don't feel it. And then something happens and it just reminds you that you're not done with it yet. So we begin to think about the possibility of maybe I might be able to forgive you. And then the next step, and then the next step, and then suddenly into what was black and white appears a little gray. I can see peace instead of this. Forgiveness is a big part of that. And there's the story that we tell ourselves about what happened and everything else. But it moves us down the road because, again, waiting for the world to change doesn't work for us. It's up to us to take that first step in our lives. And, oh, by the way, watch how things change. Watch how things change. I love that quote. Really quickly, Stephanie Dowrick is from New Zealand. And many years ago, I was senior minister for a church in Mission Valley and was also the administrator. And so I'm sitting at the desk. I had found her book in I think it was a Borders, remember Borders, in Rochester, New York, or some such place. Absolutely loved it. Used it for Sunday talks. And I'm sitting at the desk in the church, minding my own business, and the phone rings, and it's her publicist saying she's going to be in Southern California, and would we consider? I'm like, oh my God, literally. Really? So absolutely. So she visited with us, did an evening workshop, and then went on to the LA area, but and I had the opportunity to have dinner with her, but she was so gracious and so wonderful and just absolutely amazing lady. So I love this book on so many levels. If you're looking for something for your fall reading, Forgiveness and Other Acts of Love, great book. So we have some wars going on. And I would suggest that very often the cause of war is that you have something that I want. And I don't see any other way to get it because it's like pie. There's so much pie. And I want all the pie or a bigger piece than I have. And so I need to take your piece from you. waiting on the world to change. They need to stop that. They need to recognize that whatever it is, they can create for themselves, and they don't have to go and get somebody else's. But how am I when I see that somebody won the lottery last night and I didn't? How am I when I see somebody in a new car and I'm not? How am I when I see somebody in a new relationship or in a new job situation or a new house and I'm not? How important it is for us to remember that, and I think Ernest Holmes said this, everything is ours by right of consciousness. So if you had the consciousness to do that, that is fantastic, good for you, because I can have the same, because we're all using the same power, as we know, consciously or unconsciously. So if you could do that, I could do that too, because it's not pie. Love that expression. It's not pie. There's more than enough to go around, and if I don't have what I want, I can do my work and manifest whatever it is. We can spend the day imagining peace, but I would suggest that it's going to work so much better when we recognize that it's an inside job, because again, life is lived from the inside out. And so as we begin to love and nurture and honor ourselves, release those conflicts, feel those feelings, and allow ourselves to move forward, that's how we have peace on earth. Because we start within ourselves and move forward. So today, as I mentioned, is the first day of autumn. I love this slide. Autumn shows us how beautiful it is to let things go. So my question for myself, and I invite you to join me if you like, is what am I going to take with me? Because it's 100 days. We got lots of time, right? No. The way, you know how life goes. 100 days ain't much. So what are we going to carry with us? What angers, what hurts, what conflicts are we going to carry with us into 2025? Versus what are we going to just lovingly release, because I can see peace instead of this. With that in mind, join me in the light for just a moment. So staying in this consciousness of oneness, we give great thanks for this opportunity to be together today, for this glorious fall day in La Mesa and around, and in America and around the world. We give thanks for the opportunity to be together, to be reminded of the truth of our being. We give great thanks for the opportunity to look at what is no longer serving us, what is bringing us conflict, and recognize in our heart of hearts that I could see peace instead of this, and release that no longer serves us. Moving forward, we experience peace on earth, beginning with us. For this day, for this beloved community, for our time together, we give great thanks. And together we say, and so it is. Thank you.